Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Roaring Agents podcast. Today, I'm here with Jarrin Benson. He's been a real estate agent in the Portland market for 5 years. Before that, he did corporate experiential marketing. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Huge stuff. He's done a great job in the Portland market. He's does renovations, built ADUs. He's done a lot in a short period of time. So I wanted to have him on the podcast today, talk about what's working for him, what he sees, what he's taken from his previous experience into real estate. So welcome, Jarrin.
Thanks, Mike. I'm really excited to be here and talk with you.
So what is working for you right now? What's been, this is a crazy market that we've had these last 3 years.
Yeah. All right, Mike. So, I'm going to be the anti-agent. This is not what you want to hear. It's not what your audience wants to hear. But I have honestly been very happy just taking the cyclical break. Like I still take my referrals from and repeats clients and stuff like that. Anything that comes my way, I'm all over it. But I have enough friends that are beating their head against their desk, scraping for leads right now. And it's just not my vibe. You know what I mean? So I was like, hey, it's a tough time. It's a tough market. Everybody's down. I know I'm going to be down. I had a great last couple of years. And so I just decided to kind of like take a little pause from all my external marketing and stuff like that. I still call clients and talk to folks and stuff like that, but I don't do it incessantly and the way that a lot of coaching would suggest to do right now. That said, I just moved to the other side of town and I'm really excited to have taken this break and start up some farming and some marketing in my new neighborhood that I'm really excited about. So that, because I do think next year is going to be kind of a hot year. If we get some interest rate drop, I think it has the potential to be really hot. So I am now this late summer and fall going to start all my marketing back up because I feel like I've been in retirement. I sold almost 30 homes last year, and this year I've sold about 8. So, so it's been a nice little pause, but in my life, I've felt like I do this kind of thing naturally anyway. Like I'll play guitar really heavy for a year and then I won't play for a year or two. And when I come back to it, it feels fresh and I feel kind of renewed and I can hit it harder and do it in a way that I hadn't seen it before. So these kinds of breaks are important. I know a lot of people are trying to gain market share right now as we have so many agents falling off and things like that. I'll get to that. I think there's been about a year worth of grabbing market share, and the first 9 months of it has been a lot of beating your head against the desk because people don't want to hear from agents when they don't have any plans for a while. And so I'm going to slide in right now in the fall and I'm going to grab a whole bunch of market share and it's going to be great. So,
It's kind of like not fighting against the tide. This is not the right time to do it. I'll save my energy. Everyone else is going to be burned out. The last several years, I don't know if it's true more recently, but before COVID, quite often we were hearing agents like, in September, well, it's been a good year. It's like, are you done?
yeah.
And people do, like, there's several agents I talk to, December is their best month. There are not more homes closing in December. There's just less agents that are working. And so they grab theirs. So what you're doing actually makes complete sense. And what I always tell people is the only reason to be in real estate is to live your best life. And you're living your best life. You're doing things on your terms. This is the freedom that we talk about in real estate.
Yeah, and I'm lucky. I have a few other things going on, so it's not like I just put earning all to the side. I mean, I
Right.
have other things, but but as far as like being a hustling agent, it was a nice little break, and it's been about a year, and it's gonna be great when I dive back in now, and I'm making plans currently. I'm setting a lot of goals and making plans, and so I'm gonna be back.
So you kind of took this semi-retirement on purpose and you're going to get
Yeah.
back into it on purpose. What does that planning look like for you?
So the planning now is, and this is where a break is so important for me, because before, I would go anywhere and sell any home, and I'm licensed in Washington and
Mm.
Oregon, and I would have people reach out to me to buy an average price home in Eugene. And I started thinking, oh, do I want to get a Central Oregon MLS subscription and drive down, and now it's like that, none of that's even in question, not even close. Like, so now I have a clear vision of my avatar and who I want to be. And it'll be so much easier to refer out, other these outlying areas that I'm just not really focused on. So now I moved to the west side of Portland. It's a neighborhood called Raleigh Hills. It's a really cool neighborhood. It's mid-century. It's surrounded by other neighborhoods that are mid-century, Garden Home, West Slope. And then to my north is some of the best neighborhoods in Portland, in Bridal Mile and the West Hills and things like that. And I am just super excited to literally farm listings within a mile and a half of my house. And so, like, if I have my ideal business, it's to sell the homes within a mile and a half of me. And now, of course, I'm going to sell homes in North Portland, Northeast Portland, Southeast Portland, because I know it so well. And it's been the first 4 years of my business. But if I have my avatar of what my marketing is going to look like, it's total, very niche area farming.
So when you talk about farming, what's the plan to farm? What does that look like?
Handwritten cards, machine handwritten, but they look handwritten. They look
I,
really, really fantastic.
I will say I know about these and I spot them, but my wife picked up someone's card and I looked at it. Well, at first I picked it up. I was like, oh, it's one of those automatic things, whatever. And I kind of put it aside. And my wife goes, oh my God, look, they wrote this. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it does work.
Oh my God. It works so well. And the funny thing is, and this is maybe a good tip for anyone that's wanting. So I'm really tied to the investor community. In fact, that's how I got my license in the first place. I was an investor first. And the wholesalers switched to handwritten cards and postcards years ago, like 3 to 5 years ago. And when they did, they're on stage at the conferences going, this is the best marketing that we've had since radio in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it just absolutely changes the mindset of the person reading it, because you send out a card, it's first class postage, it looks like it's genuine. It is genuine. And you have inside handwritten, personalized note. And so my first round of marketing is not going to be all about rah, 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 I'm a real estate agent, call me. It's going to be, I'm your neighbor. I have a lot of experience renovating homes. I have a passion for envisioning home renovation and things like that. And I also, just moved to this area after selling homes on the other side of town for the last 4 years. And I would love to just be your neighbor and be a resource to you. And that's really the start of what my messaging is going to be to this area.
I love that. Side note, this is just a personal thing. Very few people move west side to east side that often. Like, it's people like want to stay on one side or the other. It's a strange thing.
I know.
Just real quick, what got you to move to the west side, if you want to share?
I do want to share, and I'll, you know what? I don't mind. I love this conversation because I was so snobby about it for so many years. And part of it is because, like, when I first moved here, I had my big corporate experiential marketing job, and I traveled sometimes 250 days a year, and I lived that Four Seasons life. But when I came home, all I wanted was a dive bar on Foster, to be honest with you. And there's nothing like that vibe on the West Side. You know what I mean? Like, the Foster vibe, and you drive into Southeast and you've got some cool restaurants, and you go up to Alberta and you've got a different vibe. You go over to Mississippi, you got a different vibe. The West Side for me was a stage in my growth where it's like walkability isn't as important to me anymore. As far as like walk to a bar, walk to a eatery and things like that. What really struck me about the West Side is really just from years of selling real estate all over town. And I would come over here and I'd be on windy roads, and there's topography, there's hills, there's more trees. And I'd go back to the East Side and it's just the grid, and it's a really hip grid, but it's just the grid. And so I told myself I was West Side curious about a year or two ago. And then I came up with some criteria where I had never I renovate some homes. I did 3 flips last year, a couple of years before. So I love doing those projects in addition to selling real estate, but I had never done a mid-century home because there's no mid-century homes on the East Side mainly. And so I wanted a mid-century home, and I wanted to back up to nature. And maybe if I was just outside of Multnomah County, that was okay too. And so what I did was just kind of started browsing here and there, and I found this house. It's a fixer. It looks like I'm in a 70s cabin, because I kind of am. And it backs up to a big nature preserve. So my whole backyard is woods for 300 yards. And so it's a really amazing place to come home to. And now I drive to Northeast and walk to a couple bars with friends and go to restaurants. And it's a great place to visit. But I don't live there anymore, So everybody goes through their own progression. And there, 4 years ago, 5 years, I've been in Portland since 2015, so 8 years now. And 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't even know there was a West Side. Like, I didn't even come over here, to be honest with you, ever, before I was a real estate agent. I had no reason. I would drive through 26 to go to the coast, and I was like, oh, people live over here. That's all I knew,
I love it. I love it. So you're going to start farming. What is your expectations as far as like a timeline to start seeing results? What I've heard is you need to expect 3 years in some cases, at least a year, if not longer. And it's the long-term game. What are you seeing and what are you expecting?
So it's planting seeds, right? So if you've got a bunch of seeds in the ground, sometimes a sprout is just going to be an immediate lead. Sometimes it takes 3 years for the sprout to grow fruit, right? So it's just like, I think that starting to plant these seeds now is going to ramp me up into a 2024 market, because I have 5 years worth of referral and repeat clients. And that got me through 2022. So I turned off all marketing spend in the fall of 21. I turned off all marketing spend. And then the lag from both my marketing spend and the referral and repeat clients that I have in my pipeline created a killer year in 2022. And the funny thing is I didn't even feel busy. And the reason I didn't feel busy is because I wasn't beating my head against the desk, like calling people all day and marketing. And so I know that this is against like agent, growth 101 and stuff like that, but that's who you're talking to right now, is just that guy. So like, I had a killer year in 2022 after I turned off all my marketing. But guess what? Now my pipeline is thin. And that's because I turned off all my external marketing, and because we're in a down cycle. But I fully expect that when the cycle picks up and I get back into everything I'm doing, that between the referrals and the repeats and the new marketing I'm putting out there, I'll have a really good 2024.
What else does your farming consist of besides the handwritten notes, or is it just that, and how often?
So I've wanted to do a YouTube thing for some time. I have a channel where I've done a little bit of like Portland related stuff. I've done a little bit of market update stuff, and I don't think market updates are going to get you too many leads, maybe a listing here and there. But what I also think that people can beat their head against the desk trying to listen to what everybody else is doing. And yes, there's tips, there's things that are going to grow fruit, and there's things that are not going to grow fruit. But I think the most important thing is to speak your voice. And, I know we're going to talk a little bit about my background in experiential marketing. And the biggest lesson there is to know your audience and to speak to it. And so I want to speak to people who recognize my authenticity and feel like reaching out to me like they already know me. And that's really where the value in social media and YouTube and things like that is by the time somebody reaches out to you, they're pretty comfortable with you. You don't have to sell yourself too hard to them.
So part of the farming is YouTube.
Yeah, I want to do like very local specific YouTube stuff. I want to talk about, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what that looks like, but I know that there's going to be ways to talk about my direct neighborhood in a way that it's gonna get low views, but it's gonna get really important views, because nobody's gonna watch a video about Raleigh Hills unless they care about Raleigh Hills. So if I get 20 views from it, they're 20 really important views, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah,
I'm not looking to grow a volume transplant business. You know what I mean? So
yeah, people really get enamored with the numbers and tricked by the numbers. And, if you can get a core 50, 100 people who are paying attention to you, you can turn that into a lot versus 10,000 who you tricked into signing up for your thing and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's much more personal.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah.
So let's talk about your background and what you learned there and what you brought into real estate and how that worked.
So I was trained as a sound engineer, worked my way up to like large scale corporate productions. So large, like when you go to a big trade show and you walk into the general session room and there's like screens everywhere and a fancy backdrop and sound and light and video and stuff like that. I was a producer for all that stuff from about the mid-aughts until about 2018. And it took me all over the world and worked with huge companies, some really high-end like content and media companies. And I don't know if I name them specifically or not, but and I was working with their corporate experiential marketing teams and the agencies that they would hire to do so, to do these events. So I was managing the corporate or the technical aspects, the sound, lights, and video and stuff like that. But it was all based around the experiential marketing team's vision. So I was in all these vision meetings, and after 10, 15 years of it, I feel like I could run my own experiential marketing company just from being part of all of these teams. And instead of starting my own experiential marketing company, I was very burned out of the industry, burned out of the travel, and I was already investing in real estate and doing some renovations and building ADUs and stuff like that. So I just started, I said, you know what, if I get my license, I think that my voice and my background is going to translate really well into both a buyer client experience as well as listing homes for sale and knowing how to really attract the specific buyer. So knowing who your buyer is and how to message to them.
But what kind of experiential things have you put into your listing and your buyer presentations, or just yeah?
So one great example, and this was my own home on the east side. Um, it's a great example of knowing who your audience is going to be and then voicing to them. And now I had a lot of liberties with this listing because it was my own house. So I could be a little silly with it, you know? And so the home was on a busy street across from a major hospital. So but it also was very well appointed and had a very high producing ADU in the basement. And so what what I did was I got kind of silly with the listing description. And I said things like, you know, this house has more millwork than Teddy Roosevelt's house probably did. Don't fact check me, you know. And I said, I can't remember all my lines. I could pull it up, but what it translated into was finding a buyer who is as enthusiastic about the home as I was, and they were just like me. It was an individual who wanted to have an income producing ADU in the home and who didn't mind living, you know, across the street from a hospital. So, you know, not to get, you know, cross fair housing lines and stuff like that, but you're probably not going to have too many families of five move in across the street from a hospital on a busy street. So the avatar for that home was an individual like me who wanted the income producing aspect. And so I spoke directly to that person, and I found somebody that paid cash for the home, $50,000 over list price, the first weekend. And so I call that a success because I spoke to that person.
Did you have multiple offers?
No.
Oh, okay, even better. The you sent this over to me. It was some great stuff, like, the Teddy Roosevelt don't don't fact check. 35,000 a year on Airbnb, eat that interest rates. Um, Low maintenance yard to host guests, check. It was just fun. It's fun. And I was talking to a video production company that works for real estate agents, and we were talking about how they want to do more fun videos, but everyone's scared to have fun. they're
Yeah.
they're scared to alienate something or make it seem less professional, and it's how you stand out.
Right.
But it's hard to get the seller on board as well to be too creative.
Yeah.
It's a funky thing, but I
Yeah.
think it would work.
Yeah, it totally works. I mean, there are real estate influencer examples of how it works really, really well. One of my favorites is Matt Leonetti. You know, he wears rock and roll t-shirts and he makes funny videos, and he got huge because of it. And he gets leads and he comes across as being a little bit of a jerk. You know, he's not, but when his clients like come when a potential client or lead comes to him, they want him to, you know, like, you know, what are those restaurants called where the waiter's supposed to be a jerk? It's like in Chicago and somewhere like
Yeah.
that,
Dick's Last
called
Resort is in
Dick's
Vegas.
Last Resort, right? It's like you go there because you want this waiter to be direct and make fun of you. You know what I mean? So they go there they expect a comedian, and that's what they get. And guess what? He's probably awesome to work with, and he probably like really provides his clients a great service. And that's exactly who I am. Like every time I've wanted to just be the realtor on social media, it feels so heavy to me because it's not me. Like I am a realtor and I do really well by my clients, but I'm also like a jokester and a funny guy, and I love to make little skits, and so I do some of that. I'm just not consistent enough to like grow a following from it. But I will tell you this, you don't have to have a huge social media presence either, because a lot of what your social media is, more than its growth and new leads, is it's a verification. So you get a referral from somebody else, they're going to go to your page, they're going to check you out, And the number of people who barely know me, who have been either referred to me or we met third hand and we've followed each other for 4 years now, but we've never spoke again. We met at some party or something like that. And then one day they reach out to me and they go, "Oh my God, you're so funny, blah, blah, blah. We're thinking about selling our home. Would you like to," you know what I mean? So I don't get brand new leads from my social media that just like literally come out of nowhere, but I have had a lot of those, which I call verifications. They're verifications, or they're kind of like a get to know you, get comfortable with you type of thing. And so that's what my social media has done for me.
And I think the value of doing that, having that authenticity, that personality is, I love the Jerry Seinfeld joke about weddings. You got the bride, she's in a one of a kind dress, looks like the best thing ever. Got the bridesmaids in the most hideous dresses to make the bride look fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you've got the groom and all the groomsmen. They look all the same because they are the same. And if the groom all of a sudden decides to run, everyone takes one step to the right, and then she marries the best man. He's literally called the best man. But this is how people see real estate agents. We are all the same until we show that we're different.
Yes.
We have an authority, we have humor, we have authenticity, we have experience, whatever it is, but we all
Yes.
look at the same and we all get valued the same. And by
Yeah.
showing what makes us different allows us to have something to latch on to the other people. And it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And that's the fear of most agents. I want to be appealing to everyone. And that is literally impossible.
Yes. No, absolutely. And I would challenge any agent who has the compulsion to make a fun little graphic and post offer accepted. Instead, maybe jump on a story and say, here were some challenges that we went through, and here's how we got it done. And you're going to connect with people on a much deeper level than if I see offer accepted multiple times from one agent that I follow, and I haven't seen anything else, I unfollow. And I'm an agent. I gotta imagine so many people are like that, especially when they're not your friends.
Right.
So if you're trying to be on social media to speak to people who aren't your friends, offer accepted, offer, sale closed, just those kind of posts are not going to do anything for anybody. Like, tell a story. You have to tell a story. And that, again, comes from the experiential marketing background of knowing the power of story, knowing the power of theme, knowing the power of speaking to your audience.
Let's talk about the avatar a little bit. How deep do you get into the avatar when you're figuring out, like you're doing an avatar for your farming, but that was interesting. You said, hey, what's the avatar for this house I'm listing?
Yeah.
How long does it take you? Is it kind of just a quick avatar, or do you go kind of deep on with the listings?
Because of my disc profile, Mike, which you are expert on, and I've always loved connecting with you on the disc stuff. I am like very low steadiness, very low C compliance or whatever, and high I. So what comes from that is I think and act very viscerally. So it has to come from within. Anytime I try to sit down and create a bunch of bullet points, I might get something out of it, but it feels just kind of heavy. It feels like work to me, and I have a hard time with it. So when I know that I have to create a listing description in the next week or in the next 3 days, it'll be right here in the middle of my head. And I'll be driving in my car, or I'll review the photos that just came back from the photographer, or I'll be in the home and walking around. And I know that I'm looking for the spark, but I'm not so disciplined that I can sit down and create bullet points and force myself to write. But the spark always comes. it's like, what do they say? Luck is a combination of preparedness and opportunity, right? So like, I I guess I'm lucky that I can write it when I need to, but it's because I'm prepared to, and then I get the opportunity, whether I'm there or I'm seeing the photographs or whatever. And also a lot of times you got to know what's important to your seller. Um, you know, a lot of sellers want to talk about funny things that you don't always need to put in a listing. So you have to weigh that with who your audience is versus like the seller really wants you to know that he's got smart outlets over here. You know what I mean? So so stuff like that. But it always comes to me, and when I get going on it, I flow, and I usually let it sit for a couple hours or a day, and I go back to it. I see how it feels to read it back, and then that's it. But I write my own listing descriptions. I can't imagine people who lean on um like an inexperienced assistant or AI or whatever else to write their listing descriptions. That's not
Just
me.
not you.
No.
Well, it makes it more real, right?
Yeah, I mean, it makes that's one of the parts that makes me feel like I'm doing my job the most, because that that paragraph or that essay
It's
in
gotten
Zillow
longer now. Yeah.
or online when people are looking at homes is that's the only thing that you have to convey to them something about the home other than pretty pictures. And so it has to complement the pretty pictures. It has to tell a story. It has to say, that there's flow. It has to tell you that you can entertain really easily in this home. And I'm also a fan of, if a home is kind of rough and kind of needs some help, there's a lot of fun ways to say that too.
I know a guy who's like, bring your bulldozer.
Yeah.
Be honest, because I hate that. And back in the day, they didn't have a delineation between a townhouse and a single family residence. And so they didn't force it. And
Yes.
so these people were putting single family home and then taking the photo just right. It's like, you really thought I was going to show up and go, you know what? I want a
I know,
townhome after way.
I know.
You're just making everyone mad and they
I
hate you.
know. I know. I mean, don't take a wide photo with a ratty car on the curb right in front of the house, but also like, you don't try to hide something, because there's no, the number of times I've walked into a home with a client and they go, oh wow, the photos made it look so much nicer than this. It's like, but it takes experience to pick that stuff. Like I'm looking at trim, I'm looking at wall texture, I'm looking at things that are going to make it, like, there's certain types of wall texture, and if there's any kind of photo where it's there, you can see a little bit of trim or something like that, and it looks like it's been painted 19 times by a landlord right over top of the wall plates. I can see that right away in the photos. And the rest of the house, the only thing a photographer needs to make a great photo is a little splash of color here and there. And that's why staging is so important. So like, if a photograph has some color in it, your clients call you up and go, oh, this house looks great. And I'm like, I don't think it does.
The one that's always a red flag to me is when the front photo is jammed up on the house.
Yeah.
Like that, like, wait, you're not showing me, I can't see the edges of the home. Like this
Yeah.
driveway is funky. There's something going on. And every time is like, and thank goodness for Google Satellite and Google Street Views now. Didn't have that back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, taking the little Google walk, and I tell people that did you do the Google drive by? Somebody will send me a listing, and I can tell by the address that it's a hugely commercial area. And I don't even look it up myself. I just write back and say, why don't you do a Google drive by and let me know what you think? And they come back and they go, never mind.
That's what I used to tell people is, look, out of 10 homes you like, if you drive by most of them, like
Oh,
6 of them are going to get knocked out because the agent or the photographer is really good at getting the right angles. You see the
yeah.
neighbor, you see power line, whatever it is. So in a hot market, they just want to go see it. But when it was more of a normal market, it's like, go drive by it first and see if it actually works. And that saved everyone a ton of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to get people to do that these days for some reason. I don't know why it is, but I still get pulled out to look at homes that I'm like, even just the Google drive-by tells you kind of what you need to know, but no, the drive-by is so important. And that's where I can tell where I have a very involved buyer versus a very passive buyer. And there's both types of buyers out there.
So what was your marketing before you took a break in 2021, right? And
Yeah.
then now you're doing farming. What was the marketing back then?
Well, when I started, I got my license in 2018, and I did 12 or 15 events for my own company in 2018. And then in 2019, I did about 10 events and sold 12 homes or so my first full year.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
a very
Busy.
busy, it was very busy. And I was I was an event producer, and I had teams, but it wasn't the same as when I worked for a big company and I could just like delegate all this stuff. Like was hiring contractors, and then I'd pour work on them, and they're like, well, is this part of the scope of my job? So it was a very, very stressful year, 2019. And so to answer your question, in my first 2 or 3 years, I don't know how else to say it, but I had more money than time in terms of like trying to grow real estate. And so I talked to a handful of people, and I was like, what's a good bang for the buck lead? Okay. Because I don't have time to respond to 200 Facebook leads for a 1% conversion rate. And so I started getting interested in Zillow, and I did Zillow. I did Zillow for almost 3 years. I did low spend, I did high spend, I did very high spend by myself. For a short period of time, I had a partner, and we tried to spend together and split it. And there were challenges with that. I can get pretty deep into this, and it might be valuable for people who are considering that type of lead source. If you want me to expound on this, I can
Yeah.
tell you exactly what's good about it and what's bad about it.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
do it.
so the worst part about starting a brand new career in real estate and spending thousands of dollars a month on Zillow leads is that it'll make you lazy, because you're getting leads that equal showings like almost all the time. A lot of times a lead will come in and it'll be somebody who thinks you're the listing agent and they just want to ask a few questions. That does happen. But by and large, you're getting leads of people who want to tour the home. And so it makes you very active right off the bat. But what it doesn't do is create good practices and good structure and good, like, all of the things that, like, I didn't reach out to that much of my sphere my first year or two in real estate, because I was getting leads, and every weekend I was in the car showing homes, and then I started selling homes really well. But after I was in Zillow for like a year and a half, I went back and I go, I have no fundamentals
Hmm.
of being a real estate agent. And so I think but I also had an event business going on. So I was like kind of doing both. And then in 2020, my event business just kind of naturally went dormant, and I decided to just close it out and never go back. And so then I became a full-time agent. And that's when I really started to pick up the phone and do more fundamentals, right? But Zillow, the worst part of Zillow is that you are a California tour guide to people who are just kind of Portland curious. Okay. The best part of Zillow is that you get phone calls that turn into one call, one showing, contract close. And if you're spending enough to get enough leads per month, that happens actually more often than you think. So those kind of pay for it in a way. If you got the right personality, you can be in front of multiple different types of people. And, you know, there's a lot of factors involved. And I think I'm personable enough with most people where I show up to show them the home. And if they're going to stay interested in Portland or whatnot, I could be their person, right? So that worked out really well for me. When I was in it, I was seeing about a 50% ROI. So I was making $2 for every dollar I spent. That's not that great. That's not great at all, actually. I mean,
it is actually what they project too, right?
Yeah, I mean,
What it's low for most marketing, but it is what they kind of say on that little slider when you're bidding or whatever, right?
Yeah. When you're bidding but you know, when I first spoke to a salesperson, they're like, we've got an agent that does 4-to-1 in your area. You know what I mean? Nope. So, but here's the thing. It's about 2-to-1. Like it takes some time to build up and start to get a funnel out of it. But then it becomes 2-to-1 while you're in it. But then the longer you're in it, so like I said, I cut everything off in the fall of 21. 22, I sold, let's say 25 homes, and I'll bet you a quarter of those were either direct Zillow or even referrals from Zillow from a couple of years ago. So like the ROI kind of keeps dragging on. And so it's, you know, I don't know how exactly people like what the best way to track ROI is. Is it lifetime? Is it in the moment or what? But I bet you my ROI for Zillow now is probably 2.5 to 3-to-1, just based on, you know, not to mention the countless friendships. And whoever sees this, that was one of my, I was a California tour guide for it, and we're now friends. I hope that didn't come across wrong, because I've made a lot of friends with some of those Californians, and you know, but sometimes, you know, you get somebody that just wants to vacation in Portland and they want to tour some homes while they're at it, and then they go home and you follow up with them for a while, and then they say, "Oh, we moved to Austin." So that's you know, that's with any lead though.
Well, and this is something that I think we don't talk enough about is whatever lead path you're going to do, you should be prepared to do it for a while, but you don't necessarily have to do it forever. Doing cold calls, doing open houses, doing all these things, the ultimate goal for most of us should be a referral business. And so there is that legacy to that effort you do, as much as you may hate cold calls or hate open houses or whatever it is. And I'm talking off, you know, I'm kind of against my main theory, which is live your best life. But I know some people are uncomfortable doing some of these things.
Yeah.
Being uncomfortable for a period of time to get it going, like pushing a car, it takes so much effort to get the car going. But once it gets going, it's a lot easier.
Totally.
So I think this is something to remember is if you do something for a short period of time, but do it well, you have the potential to turn it into something bigger.
No, absolutely. And I totally agree. I think that anyone should put in an honest effort for at least a year with anything they choose to do. I mean, maybe not door knocking, because you might go crazy, but you know, put in a solid effort, spread it out, make it a year, and especially YouTube. Like,
yeah,
if I'd have gotten steady on YouTube when I started wanting to in 2018, oh my God, I can't imagine what I'd be doing today. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So you can't wait for motivation. You have to find discipline, and you have to just stick to something.
The podcast I had last week was Half Built Bridges.
Yeah.
And we do that where we just build it. We build it with the materials we have, and then we're just kind of like, oh, that looks more interesting over there. It's too late to change this. I don't know, just leave it and go build another one.
Yeah.
And we never make it across the river. We just
Totally.
keep bouncing around because that looks shinier. That looks, oh, maybe the water's lower over there and I can make it, or whatever. And we talk ourselves out. And if you just kept going,
Yes.
you
Yes.
just kept the calls, just kept the videos, just kept whatever,
Yeah.
you would be where a lot of people are that you're jealous of or want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. What it comes down to is when you are an individual real estate agent, you are either in an open sea or you are on an Olympic lane. You have lanes and you can stay in those lanes. And I would venture to say that people are a lot more comfortable swimming within lanes than they are swimming across an open sea where you can't see any shore. So I don't know if that analogy landed or not, but where it comes from for me is I was lamenting a month or two ago to my mentor, my life coach, right? And I said, man, I'm feeling like getting the ball rolling again really heavily, but I can't put the car in drive. I said, I literally every week I say on Monday, I'm going to go. And I can't put the car in drive and I can't figure out why. And he goes, where are you going? I said, just to sell real estate again. How much? A lot. But how much? So he goes, you need to set some tangible goals and metrics for why you're going to start on Monday. And that's the destination. Like I couldn't put the car in drive because I had no idea where I was going, and that's the analogy. I mean, living, you're swimming in an open sea and knowing what direction the car is going is going to make that bridge, be able to build that bridge all the way across and finish it instead of getting all squirrely and going, oh, I like that bridge too. And I like that bridge too. And building the half built bridges.
Well, as we're wrapping up here, one last thing is maybe what you were an investor and you got into real estate. You had a better beat on real estate than most people when they get in. What surprised you? What was maybe harder than you thought it was going to be when you got in?
I
If
was
anything.
surprised. I was surprised about the wall between traditional retail real estate agents and investors.
Hmm.
I was surprised how they felt about one another. And I have tried to bridge that gap. I mean, I think that I'm both, and I think that I do both really well. I think that there's room for both. I totally understand both sides, but I'm known amongst my investor friend group as being one of their friends that's both, because there aren't that many. So I would say to any traditional, long-standing retail real estate agent, you can learn so much from the investors. And like I just said, the wholesalers have been sending machine handwritten letters and postcards for 5 years now, and they've gotten all their success out of it. By the time we start now, we're too late, but I'm
Hmm.
going to do it anyway.
Awesome. If someone wants to send you a referral or get to know you, where can they find you?
Jarrin Benson is at Jarrin Benson, JarrinBenson is pretty much I'm everywhere there. So all my socials are that. And my email is Jarrin@JarrinBenson.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been fun. I think there's some great stuff in here.
Thanks, Mike. This is awesome.